Well, let's start talking about some of the intermediate skills. And one of the first things I have there is asking for recommendations and endorsements. Okay. The general rule of thumb with this is if you ask somebody for a recommendation, you should return the favor. It's just not cool to have all these people give you these recommendations to make you look really awesome, and then you don't give them anything back. Okay. So before you ask somebody for a recommendation, you need to think about, okay, I'm going to return the favor, and how might I do that? The better way to do that is actually recommend them on LinkedIn and ask them to return the favor. That's the best way to do that, because then you're showing that you've already gone out of your way to provide them with this snippet. You know, it's not super long, but a snippet of information that they can post if they choose, or they might ask you to edit it. And then there's, again, this obligation to return the favor. Request an introduction. This is something really powerful. 8 out of 10 jobs in the United States are gotten by who you know, not what you know. Okay? And yes, if you're applying for, say, a large corporation or government agency, you as a candidate have to jump through all the same hoops as all the other people. But if you know somebody who's with that organization, they can always put in a good word for you, and that might increase your chances of being hired. So here's a great example of being introduced to somebody. And bear with me, it's a little bit convoluted, but it works. So one of our former students, he was in our major for a couple years. He is now the brewer at one of the craft breweries here in Fort Collins. Okay, so my wife and I were at an event. He was there. We looked at each other, and I said, Justin, and he said, Paul. And we started talking, and his wife was there. So we started talking to his wife. His wife has a degree in natural resources from another university, but is not employed in natural resources. She would love to be employed in natural resources. So I met with her, gave her some advice, and met with some other people, introduced her to other people. And so she said, well, you know, there's this environmental consulting firm here in town that I really, really admire, and I'd love to work for, or at least find out more information. I said, well, I'll see if I have anybody connected, right? So all I had to do was enter the name of that company in the search box here on LinkedIn, and it showed me if I had any first, second, or third level connections that worked there. I didn't have any first level connections, but I had 3 second level connections. So I messaged all 3 of those people and the other person who I was messaging for, and said, I'd like to introduce you to so-and-so. She's interested in this company. I see that you know people that work there. Would you mind introducing her to one of the people you know who works there? And the first 2, I didn't get any responses. The third person I messaged, they said, oh yeah, so this was one of our former undergrads. He's working at his PhD at University of Idaho right now. And so Chad messaged the person he knew at the environmental consulting firm that next day. And the day after that, the person at the environmental consulting firm talked to the woman and said, let's talk. And now, whether or not she has a job there, I don't know, but that's a great example of how you can ask for introductions and find people. It's sort of that networking power. Okay. So following companies, I've talked a little bit about that, but as you look underneath interests up here, companies, groups, Pulse is sort of trends that are happening within different industries, okay? And there's some well-known people or groups or companies that do a lot of stuff in LinkedIn, advice, recommendations for how to become more professional in a certain career, or just skills in life, that sort of thing. Richard Branson, president of Virgin Airlines, the cell phone company, they're going to be one of the first space tourism companies, right? He's out here all the time posting stuff, and he's got, I don't know, millions of followers, because he's a very successful, CEO, well liked. And so, a lot of high profile people, high profile organizations, and people that post stuff quite frequently. And then let's go into connections, because I want to spend some time on that before I jump to anything else. So, Colorado State University pays a monthly fee to LinkedIn to allow current and former students to easily connect. And so, if underneath connections, if you click on Find Alumni, currently there are over 128,000 former and current Colorado State University Fort Collins students on LinkedIn. And remember, there's 2 Colorado State Universities in Colorado, right? You've got Fort Collins, you've got Pueblo. So this is Colorado State University, Fort Collins. You could also look up Colorado State University, Pueblo. And so what you have here is you have where they live, where they work, what they do. If you click on this arrow here on the right, what they studied, what they're skilled at, how you are connected. Okay? Now, if you want to search this entire set, all 128,000 people, you can click up here and search for people or companies or that sort of thing. If you want to limit it to the years they attended or the years they graduated, to kind of whittle it down, you can do that. But probably your best bet is to, let's say you want to connect. Okay, so if you've just started your profile and you want to connect with just people from your major. So the major I teach in is natural resource recreation and tourism. So I click on that and you see this box up here, and now it's dropped the total to 764. And I can change who appears here, right? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. These are all people that I'm connected to. So most of these are undergraduate alumni. And it shows you how many connections we share, their name, their title, where they live, if I want to message them, and what year they graduated. Okay? Now, I can go in there and say, don't show me anybody that I have a first level connection to. And I'll do that sometimes if I want to connect with alumni, okay, that I'm not currently connected with. And as you scroll down here, initially you'll see, well, gosh, there's only a few people, but as you continue to scroll down, more and more will appear. And it'll just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. Okay. So I'm going to remove that connection or that search box, and now what I'm going to do is search for where they live. Okay. So let's say you know for certain you want to relocate to Miami, Florida. Okay. And what it'll do here is it does these sort of geographic regions. And so currently there's 250 alumni in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. Now you can further refine this by saying, okay, I want to see people that have graduated from my major or my college. Or what you can do is just look at these people and find out what they do for their career. And if they're in an industry that's related to something you're interested in, you might want to reach out to them and connect with them and introduce yourself and say, I'll be graduating in 6 months. I'm looking to relocate to the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. Would you happen to know anybody who works in the following types of companies or industries or that sort of thing? Okay. So general rule of thumb, everybody knows at least 250 other people. Okay. They may not know them from a friendship standpoint, but they're at least an acquaintance with them. Okay. And so it's called the rule of 250. So by doing that, then you can say, well, gosh, everybody here knows somebody. So if you're reaching out to someone through LinkedIn, the more specific you can be, the better. Not just say, do you know anybody in natural resources? Say, do you know anybody who works for the following types of organizations and or who does the following types of things for their career? And the more sort of memory prompts you can provide them, the better luck you're going to have. And they'll say, oh yeah, my wife's coworker's husband works for that consulting firm, that's over there, and they work with blah blah blah. So this is to me, I think, is the most powerful tool in LinkedIn for someone who's in college and getting ready to graduate and wants to make those connections. Questions about this particular part of LinkedIn? Okay. And you can, yeah, go ahead.
How do you request to join a group?
Yeah, so if it is, so let's say I want to join so I can follow, let's try Okay, so I just typed in, this is the Air Force ROTC Detachment 157 Alumni and Cadet Association, right? So I would click join, and then the person or persons who moderate that group, they would have to admit me into the group. Yeah, so that's a joining group. Now, if you just want to follow a company, so this is, when I was doing this before Coca-Cola, I would just click follow, and then their news feeds would show up for me. Kind of like when you if you want to follow a company or organization or something on Facebook, it's the same sort of thing.
So if there's not a join option,
Mhm.
they don't have a group that you can.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so sometimes you gotta kind of look around a bit. If you look here, when I typed in Coca-Cola, there's all these different. So here's actual group, Coca-Cola group, current and former employee group, that sort of thing. Yeah. So here's companies, and then here's groups. So that's how you can do that. Yeah. And so, if you're an alumni of another school, even if you didn't graduate from that school, if you attended the school for a semester, you're an alumni. Okay. And so you might want to think about following, or if they have a group, either follow that school or join the alumni group, because that can be some good connections, especially if there's people that were in the same program that you were in. That's a good way to connect. Other questions about the alumni connections? Okay. And you can also change the university as well. Okay. So if you attended another university or school, you can go through here and see if they're in here, and so that's another way that you can connect. And then add connections. This is where if I want to, I can enter my email address, and I give it permission. It'll log into my Yahoo or my Gmail or my colorstate.edu, and it'll follow people that way. Question?
A couple questions there on just what you were doing right there.
Uh-huh.
How does this work? Are they, once you kind of give them that email address, they're able to get into that your contacts, and
Yep.
they're just able to dig right in?
Yeah. Yeah. There's some software code. It goes in there. It looks at everybody that's in your address book for that email account, and it used to be just automatically would send requests. Well, now it says, I think there's an additional prompter that says, we will send requests to the following people, and if you want, you can uncheck which ones you don't want it sent to. So, yeah.
One more on the groups.
Mhm.
I was just trying to connect to Colorado State University,
Mhm.
and so I found the group Colorado State University. My options are add to board
Yeah.
or suggest.
Yeah.
What's add to board? What does that mean?
I'm not sure about that. My guess would be that it would be a discussion board, so that might show up in a certain area, and you might be able to post to that board, but if it's a group that has membership controls, you'd have to wait till you got admitted into that group to post. Yeah. All right. So another intermediate skill I want to talk a little bit about is jobs. And you can this is also a setting you can have your job activity public or private. So for example, if you're currently employed and you're connected with colleagues or your supervisor at your current job and you're looking for another job, you probably want to make that private. But if you're unemployed or or if you don't care, who knows, then you can make it public, because then other people can see that, oh, you're looking for a job, and if there's a recruiter looking for someone like you and they know you're in the job searching mode, it's a lot easier to find you. And so what you can do here is it will, based on what you've entered into your profile, it will start posting jobs that it thinks you are qualified for based on your skills, education, and experience. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing. Now, if you don't want to see this stuff, you can just hide that job, and you won't see it anymore. But it is kind of a neat thing that it's automatically finding stuff for you. Now, when you click on certain jobs, so I'm going to click on this. It's a part-time instructor for statistics for business at Front Range Community College. If there was a recruiter from Front Range that posted this job and they wanted their information to be seen, their photograph would appear up here in the upper right-hand corner, and there might be a little box below that says, post a question for this recruiter. Okay? Now, one of the differences between the free version and the paid version, if you have the paid version, you can actually see what other people have applied for this job if they have that setting turned on their account. Okay? Sometimes you can see just how many other people have applied. So there's some advantages to paying for the what's called the professional version, but typically most people say you can usually do fine without paying for the professional version. But I think it's definitely worth looking into. And then the other thing is you can just search for jobs up here. And I haven't used this a lot for helping students search for jobs. I've done it a little bit. I mean, occasionally stuff will show up in here which is related, but you can specify location, company size, and industry as well. So you do have some granularity here to kind of limit stuff down. And then of course you can also use it to post a job, and that's more of an advanced skill later on. So questions about the jobs function? All right. So one of the last things I'd like to talk about is once you join a group, okay, to start making your profile show up quicker and to have that blue circle full is, so join a group, but then start a conversation or participate in a conversation in that group. So here's an example. My son's best friend's mom, Lisa Flint, is a sales manager for OtterBox, and she used to be in charge of all of their educational sales, and now she's in charge of even more than that. She's been with the company about 5 years now. So she started this group several years ago on educational sales for OtterBox and invited me to join, and she knows that we've used OtterBox